in the Fiero today, a thought came to my mind. How many of you actually drive yours like it's supposed to be? Not kept in a garage, put away for winter, but how many people actually drive their Fieros? I learned the lesson the hard way when I parked my Fiero over the winter. Yes, I had a battery tender on it. Yes, I started it. But when I went to drive it in the spring, I had issues. That was after the first year of owning it. So, I'm really want to know how many of you actually drive your cars. I mean, I know there's some excellent examples out there of museum quality. I mean, I know the values are going up on them. Everybody said they'd never be a collector's item, but such is life. This is, I think, my 8th Fiero I've ever owned. I'd have to go back and count, but this is my first GT. Now with this one, I did do upgrades. I grabbed a auxiliary gauge cluster out of an 86. I mean, I've done all the maintenance to the car that it needs to keep it on the road. Just recently I had to change the fuel pump because the last person that did the fuel pump really didn't do the wiring that well in the tank, and the car would just randomly stall out. Ended up being the pump. For those of you that have issues with your gas gauge, here's a quick tip. Check the connector on the rear firewall for the fuel pump. That's your power, ground, and fuel level in that 3 plug. So if you're having weird gas gauge fluctuation, or if it pegs all the way full, might check the connector. What are you guys getting for fuel economy? I went to the 5-speed out of an 87 GT, and I'm getting maybe 20 in town, maybe 25 on the highway. And if there's anybody out there that can send me the right link to repair my tack, that would be appreciative. So I know exactly what I have to solder or desolder to fix it. I'd like to have a working tack. There's going to be some more upcoming videos on this car. Matter of fact, I am going to put in, I'll splice in when I was under the car, getting the fuel tank out. I'll splice in the sound of this lovely 2.8. Yeah, I know. 145, 147 horsepower. I should go the 3.8 supercharged. That's still the plan. I still have the old engine cradle out of the 87. I am running the 87 2.8 in here, running off the 85 ECU. And I still have the original 4-speed, but the 4-speed was failing on second gear. So, it's kind of a talking video. I was just curious if I get any response out of anybody who watches the Fiero videos, and see if I can get in touch with other Fiero owners. I'm on a bunch of the Facebook groups helping people out. I helped out a gentleman recently with his 87. We went through all the diagnostics on it. Pretty much, he's got a low mile car that somebody kept in storage. He started driving it every day, and randomly the ECU went out on the 2.5 liter. I honestly have never run into that issue with these, and I've had a bunch of the 2.5s. We did all the correct testing, every sensor it was complaining about. I had him unplug it. There was no change. He replaced it, like on the throttle positioning sensor. Brand new one out of the box. Put it on. Doesn't matter if it's OEM or from a parts store. When you plug it in, there should be a noticeable change, and when you unplug it, just like with your map sensor, there should be a change. He was throwing IAC, map, and TPS codes. The 2.5 is really a decent engine for what it is. I mean, look at the mail trucks in the US here. They run that motor. I know it only makes, 92 horsepower, but I still remember my second Fiero I ever bought was an 85 2M4. I drove that car every day, and on the highway I was getting 35 miles to the gallon out of it, which really impressed me. In town I was getting 25. Now, the story on my first Fiero. Thought I'd share this. My first ever Fiero was a 86, and I had got it in a trade. They had just did the head gasket. It ran great. That's what made me fall in love with the Fieros. Well, after about a month of owning it, lo and behold, the head gasket refailed. Come to find out, they never shaved the head. So I got screwed. But where the story gets interesting is I was coming back from a water park. This was when I was younger, maybe 18, 19 years old. I'm pretty old now, but that's here nor there. But the car overheated, and I shut it off, coasted down this long hill to make it to a gas station. I watched the temp drop, below 220, and I'm like, okay, I can start it, get through the light. Well, it started, rolled into the gas station, and it backfired and caught on fire. At a gas station, my first ever Fiero did the Fiero thing. It burned to the ground. So, that old wives' tale of, the recalled Fieros with, they catching on fire. Yeah, I had one. Did that stop me from owning another one? No. After that Fiero came the second one. The third and fourth one and the fifth one are interesting. The third one I bought on a whim for $300. It had a locked up motor. The car was a little gone interior wise. It had high miles, but I wasn't in the right financial situation to save the car, so I had to let it go. Fast forward another 5 years. If you look on my YouTube channel, look for the original black and silver Fiero. There's a black one and a silver one. I picked up those two for a real smoking deal back in 2012, I believe, 2012, 2013. They both had insanely low miles, but they hadn't ran it over 15 years. And if you watch my videos, you'll see what I went through to get them running. That's where I honed my experience working on these Fieros. Because I can tell you when they sit, for anything over 5 years, because I've gotten some that have sat for 5 years, you end up losing the clutch master, clutch slave, brake master, calipers. I mean, it's just from sitting. Brake fluid eats away at rubber. Now, here comes the other part. Number 6 was the 2M6. I kind of skipped over that. That was my third one. I got that car hit in the front, put a nose on it, drove it, sold it years and years and years ago. That one technically should have been number 3. So 7 and 8. So the one I'm in right now is number 7. It's the one I've had the longest. I've owned this since 2018. I believe. Yeah, 2018. So this is the one that got replacement motor, transmission out of an 87 GT that's in my YouTube videos. That's the one that had sat for 10 years. It had been hit in the rear. So there was no saving it. The guy I got it from had already stripped it. He didn't even know if it ran. It had a title. I needed a rebuildable motor, so I got the car. Well, whoever parked it the smart way. No gas in it. So, literally threw an Optima Red Top in it, got in, sat on a milk crate, pushed the clutch to the floor, the clutch stuck to the floor, rolled the ignition over, and it cranked over. And I looked at the dash cluster because it was still there, and I'm like, oh, it's got no gas in it. So we put 3 gallons of gas in it, and you'll see the video, it fired right up. Of course, I checked oil. If oil looked good, it looked like oil. It fired up. And that's the motor that's in this car. So, I've had a really interesting history with these Fieros. I'm interested to see your comments about your Fieros. What's your story on them? I've been debating putting my Fiero up on VinWiki and share my stories. I wish I still had the VIN numbers to the other ones, because I've got all these stories on these cars I've owned. So, go ahead, give a comment, give a like, hit subscribe. Looking forward to hearing from you. All right.